Rogue Media Sports.
Yes, it is the Cam Show. It's Rogue Media Sports Network. A massive, massive day for our nation. And by that, I mean a live Cam Show at 11 a.m. Central Time.
Well, it's 11:08, but yeah.
You know what, Mike?
Yeah, I just had some problems with some cables. Is all I'm saying.
I didn't even bring this up.
I know,
man.
but I told you that I just want to apologize to anybody who's been sitting there for 7.5 minutes waiting for the Cam Show to start rolling out.
And my hat's not red; it's coral.
It is. It's coral. It's that is right down the middle. It
Dude,
couldn't be more purple if you tried.
I mean, if they take away red hats from me too, I'm going to be pissed. I mean, they kind of have. I mean, this is not red. This is coral. But they've already taken away the number 45, which is my favorite Red Sox player of all time, and can't wear the retired number hat. Huh?
Is that who that is? Billy Bean?
Close.
Sorry.
Do you know who Billy Bean is?
That's the only name I could come up with is Billy Bean.
Do you know who Billy Bean is?
I really don't. I know he played baseball.
He did.
Because why wouldn't he?
And he was, I mean, that is a baseball name.
Yeah.
If I've ever heard of him.
Yeah.
So he did not play in the 20s, though. He played in like the 80s. He is a general manager and was famous for his work with the Oakland A's.
That's how
I got the movie Moneyball.
That's how I know him. There it is.
So there was another guy named Billy Bean. I know. Wait, there's two.
Two Beans?
That he worked for MLB.
Two Beans, no waiting.
As like an inclusion director or something. He was big in like LGBT stuff with MLB because he was gay. And he died a couple months ago, and like everyone was like posting stuff about Moneyball, like, "Oh, I can't believe Billy Bean died! Like, did so much for the game."
It was
like,
different,
just
Billy
a
Bean.
different guy
oh,
who also had a good impact on Major League Baseball. And like the poor guy, man, he just was not.
There was a fake ad on Saturday Night Live this last week for Harvey Epstein, who's running for something in New York, and his whole campaign is, I'm not either one of those guys. I'm not.
Despite what you might think. Right. Dude, I get fascinated by people who just luck out with their names or don't luck out, I guess. Like they get unlucked out.
Sure.
Like the former basketball coach of Kentucky, Adolph Rupp, like started coaching before some guy named Adolph shut the name down for good.
It's not a name you see very often anymore.
Or
I say let's bring it back.
Like I had a teacher whose name is Mara Carey. And for like the first 30 years of her life, that was like nothing. And then all of a sudden a megastar comes in with a very similar name. Yep. But the best one of all time is, and thankfully this guy is something of a celebrity because it could have been even worse if nobody knew him. But the Ravens radio play-by-play broadcaster. Pete, do you know what that guy's name is?
I do. It is synonymous with somebody else who's really famous.
He's thinking. You can't hear him.
Just say it. I
got him turned up a little bit.
Jerry Sandusky.
Yes.
Like that sucks, man. That's not a common name at all.
Yeah, that sucks.
That sucks. But if he's just like an insurance salesman,
sure,
that's even worse.
Sure.
You know what I mean? But it's Jerry with a G instead of the Penn State DC Jerry with a J.
Start spelling Jerry with a G.
And why did I just I love that I still refer to him as the Penn State defensive coordinator instead of, well, I can't say that word. I'll get demonetized.
I had some students. Had some students in my past. And I've probably told you this before, but had a kid named Exxon, EXXON, and then had two students that were brothers in this fictitious city. That
one of them was named Snoop Dogg.
Nope, it was Lamangelo and Orangelo, and when you break it down, it's lemon jello and orange jello. So there you go.
That's creative.
Yeah, it's creative, isn't it? It's just what was sitting around at the time.
Were they twins?
Yeah.
Like
one was a little.
You know what that could have been, Mike? You know what?
You
know what that could have been?
Yeah.
Think of what you eat in a hospital.
No, absolutely. That's what I'm saying. It was just whatever was sitting around,
and it's just there.
Or maybe they dropped them in it. You know, who knows? Maybe they have superpowers now.
It's a trade deadline today.
Ooh.
It is a massive day in America because the NFL's trade deadline is today. Will the Patriots be making some moves to make this team better and make a final push for the playoffs? Of course not. Of course not. But I find this trade deadline actually very interesting with how people are talking about the Patriots, because everyone's like, suddenly we don't want to get rid of these vets because they're too important in the locker room. And I understand the importance of that. I think I talked about this last week. Like, Belichick always had guys who he could have gotten rid of, gotten something for them, didn't, because he wanted to keep some of these guys in the locker room. I think of like a Mike Compton or a Ted Johnson, although that might have been a mistake when he quit on the team. But, guys like that just kind of hung around forever. Lawrence Guy a couple years ago would be another example of that. But it's like with this, I don't know if keeping Devon Godshaw is going to make your locker room a positive place. And that's nothing against him, but like, they've got a coach who has no idea what he's doing, and the locker room is an absolute circus. So what is that going to do? And Gerard Mayo did talk about, it was right after we got off the show yesterday, what the Patriots could be doing in this trade deadline. That's the one with the lady. Someone with the lady.
Does your week change at all this week with the trade deadline tomorrow? Like, does it? You guys talk about plans a lot. What is the plan going into tomorrow's trade deadline?
I think first, look, this isn't baseball, and in baseball, you have big name players going to other teams. Like, I would say historically, even as a player and now as a coach, the trade deadline is a bunch of hype. It's a bunch of hype. Like, who's going to move a starting quarterback to another team right now? Who's going to move a starting left tackle? I mean, it rarely happens.
Well, I question Gerard Mayo and his coaching ability at times, but two things were made abundantly clear in that clip. One, he knows it's not baseball, and two, he has plans. I love that start to a question. You always talk about plans. Really? The head coach of the football team has plans. His plans are, and he pretty much said it without saying it there, we're not bringing in anybody. And the guys they have don't really have much value either. They got a sixth for Josh Uche, a good pass rusher on a team that needs a pass rush. That's a contender, obviously, a front runner in Kansas City. And I got a sixth. Like, I love Kyle Duggar as a player. With the contract situation and where you're going and how long it's going to take for you to get good, it would make sense to move on from Kyle Duggar. But if you're getting anything worse than a third-round pick, that's not a success. Not a success. And the comp pick would be better. So, obviously, they're not going to do much today. One guy they're not going to trade, but who has been a major, major disappointment this year is second-round pick Jalen Polk, the receiver from Washington. He had more penalties than targets on Sunday. A week after missing a game, concussion, okay, that's fine. But the week before that, he also did not have a catch. Hasn't caught a ball in weeks, man. And he is statistically one of the worst receivers in all of football. And it's, once again, the second-round pick. The Patriots drafting wide receivers in the second round, it never, ever, ever, ever works. This is from Chad Graff. It's still early, but we're getting close to bust territory for Jalen Polk, number 37 pick. Out of 128 receivers, he ranks 128th by PFF, 128th in YAC, 127th in yards per route run, 10 catches on 26 targets, and was benched after the 2 penalties in the game against Tennessee. Like, this is not hyperbole. Right now, Jalen Polk is the worst wide receiver in the National Football League. That actually qualifies. Because guys like Tyquan Thornton and KJ Osborne probably don't even qualify. Out of 128, he is 128. It doesn't get much worse than that. And I saw a name pop up the other day for, here's a guy to pick up in fantasy because he's having a big year. Ladd McConkey from Georgia, rookie receiver for the Chargers. And I thought, that name sounds familiar. He's picked 34th overall by the Chargers. because the Patriots traded out of that pick to pick at 37 to get Jalen Polk. The Chargers got Ladd McConkey instead, who has 35 receptions for 440 yards and 4 touchdowns. That's leagues better than Jalen Polk. That's miles better than Jalen Polk. In, honestly, a quarterback situation that's not that much different. Herbert is obviously a more established player, but Drake May has proven he can get the ball to these guys. Jalen Polk does not get open, and when he does not catch the football. And this wide receiver room, I know we talk about it a lot, but this is one of the worst receiving corps I have ever seen on any team ever, maybe at any level. Like, it's that bad. Pop Douglas, fine. Good player. Probably should be, being a slot guy, your third receiver. Instead, he's like your number one pass-catching receiver. Because the other guys you got are Jalen Polk, KJ Osborne, in theory, Tyquan Thornton, in theory. Javon Baker does not play. Kendrick Bourne has forgotten to play football. It's like something is happening here. Because as Burt Breer pointed out yesterday, like all the reviews for Jalen Polk coming out of Washington were that he had a great head on his shoulders and that like he positive, mature, ready for the NFL on top of being a big play receiver opposite Rome Odunze at Washington. That he was ready for this, mature guy. And yet we have not seen any of that. He has not been ready for the NFL. That is abundantly clear. And KJ Osborne, pro's pro in Minnesota. I don't even know if he exists anymore. I'm not going to lie to you. I have no idea. No clue. Some kid went up trick-or-treating to my house. I said, "Oh, you the invisible man?" He said, "No, I'm KJ Osborne." And the guy next to him, who I also didn't see, just points out, "I'm Tyquan Thornton." Thank you.
I was a little late but there's several of them. So hopefully
so was I on
quantity, not quality.
Like you have one kind of NFL receiver in that room. What the hell is going on? And you've got a quarterback who makes them look better, and they're still like Kayshon Boutte is like all he's got out there. Like that should not be a sentence that's ever said ever. I said it a few weeks ago. I'm not ready to call Jalen Polk a bust yet because it's halfway through year one, but this is what a bust looks like in year one. This is what it looks like. It's not unlike what N'Keal Harry looked like in year one. Because again, 10 catches on 26 targets for 78 yards and a touchdown. That is bust material. That is not a guy who you should be trading your pick that ends up becoming Ladd McConkey, who's already way better, to lock up this guy at 37. In his first year with the Patriots, N'Keal Harry played 7 games. He had 12 receptions on 24 targets with 2 touchdowns. If you're keeping score at home, that is better than Jalen Polk. Through 7 games, it's better. Less targets, more catches. The guy is N'Keal Harry. And that is frightening for the Patriots. But it's not baseball. Who are you going to bring in? And I mean, I agree with that sentiment from Mayo. Like, what are you going to bring in? You know what I mean? You need to build this team through the draft and through free agency, which it's not going to be a sexy destination whatsoever because, yeah, the quarterback's good, but no one knows what you got at coach. You don't want to go live in Foxborough. A lot of these free agents don't. But you're going to have a ton of money. We'll see. But Jalen Polk, get him off my football team, man. This has been a brutal first year. One guy that wants to start a player off their hockey team is Mike Felger. He's talking about David Pastrnak and the benching and why we need to look into the numbers a little bit for this. And it might be worse than you think. That's coming up next on the Cam Show.
Nobody tells our stories better than our clients.
The difference is stark. I was rear-ended at a stop. I thought I was fine, and then once I got home, I realized it's a lot worse than I thought. I ended up having a ruptured disc. You say you're not hurting, and then an hour later, you're saying you're in all this pain. I just felt like most people would think that I was lying. That's when I decided to call Daniel Stark. I owe a lot to Daniel Stark. They really got me what I deserved.
The difference is Stark.
We definitely love our relationship and love Extraco. It's been an amazing experience.
They made the PPP process easier. They were reaching out to me saying, what can I do to help you? That made a huge difference because my stress level, when we shut down, to afterwards was night and day.
Our experience with Extraco has been phenomenal since the very beginning, so we love Extraco.
Welcome to a special edition of the Doomsday Podcast. Look at this. We got one of the great golfers in the world, certainly one of the great pass rushers in NFL history.
But he also had a vision for you. And so it was like you had the best of both worlds, right? You had somebody on you early, and then you had somebody who was maybe more relaxed.
What were a couple of your biggest takeaways? The first thing you referred to that I've spoken to some personnel people and general managers of the league to get some, independent, objective assessments of the players the Cowboys picked, and we'll go through that.
Has the general manager changed at all in the draft for?
Nope, it's been the same since I was here the last time.
Saw Ed Werder in the commercial break there.
Hey, can I add something?
Yeah.
Today is 10 years that Too Many Cooks came out. Do you know what I'm talking about when I say Too Many Cooks?
Too many cooks in the kitchen make the people round?
Well, that's a different thing. That's John's.
That is a very inside joke. Yeah.
No, on Adult Swim, there was a thing called Too Many Cooks, and it's like the intro to a sitcom, but it just keeps going and keeps going and keeps going for like 10 minutes.
Really?
It was foundational for me, but 10 years ago today.
For you,
yeah,
in your 40s.
Yeah, yeah. Changed the way I live.
Real impressionable age.
Yeah, it was that, and my friends were trying to get me to smoke, and things like that.
Peer pressure.
Yeah.
That sounds good though. I'm into that.
Like, guys, I can't smoke. My mom will know.
Dude, you guys have Axe body spray to cover it up.
I never understood the Axe body spray thing, by the way, because they always come in like these flavors. I don't even want to call them scents; they're flavors, right?
Oh
it's
my
like,
god, man.
It's like sex horse or something like that.
Have it and Pete probably didn't either. Of like, we had it when we did like middle school gym class.
Yeah.
Of like, we're just hitting puberty. Nobody takes a shower in gym in middle school. So you would go hard in gym class in the middle of the day.
Mm-hmm.
You'd be sweating and you just fucking douse yourself.
So you gotta remember, I was teaching about that time.
Man.
I was teaching middle school.
Yeah, so you've seen. So
yes,
you get it.
Lots of clouds that I walk through. God, you know what's worse is when they can't afford the actual Axe body spray and they buy like the off-brand one. It's like Ix,
which I'm sure Bill got for me.
Ix booty spray or something. It's just
Dude, can I say something about my dad that's going to sound bad, but I promise it's not. My dad is frugal. I wouldn't call him a cheapskate. He spends money on quality things that are important. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like sending us to college, for example.
Yeah.
Or like LL Bean boots. Those are going to last forever. So
right.
Spend it,
those waterproof duck boots.
Stuff like that. Or a car. He doesn't cheap out on a car. But he's frugal with a lot of other things. So we got name brand or not name brand, store brand, everything.
Yeah.
Which was fine. I didn't really care about that too much.
Well, we've done several taste tests here in this studio that say that name brands are just about as good as the other ones. Yeah.
Yeah.
Pop-Tarts.
Well, don't tell Pete that.
I'll eat Pop-Tarts any day. Pop-Tarts.
I'll bet the store brand Pop-Tart movie will be better than Seinfeld one.
Has to be. More action.
But like he would not cheap out necessarily on like sports equipment because he knew how much we love sports.
Yeah. Plus it gets dangerous at that point, kind of.
Yeah, and he's like, if I don't get you a good baseball glove now, I'll just have to buy another one for you in a year and a half. Like it's not worth it. Anyway, he got me basketball shoes one year early. It's like 4th or 5th grade. And he was like, he was just like, wear your sneakers. Wear your sneakers.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, it's not the same, Dad. Everyone's got basketball shoes. The coach says I need basketball shoes. And he gets me one day this nice pair of basketball shoes. I'm like, I've seen this logo. Like, kids wear these. They're nice black high tops. I'm like, let's go. And I didn't find out till years later when there was a mini documentary that it was the Starbury shoes.
Oh, yeah.
Pete, you remember the Starbury shoes? Stephon Marbury? So and I guess I just missed this at the time. That was the big deal about it. They made a mini documentary because Stephon Marbury wanted to make these affordable shoes, so they were like $30.
And nobody bought them.
Yeah, because they were kind of crap. They gave me a bunch of blisters.
Which one came first? Was it that one, or was it the one that Big Ben was doing too? He did shoes like that were like $30.
Ben Roethlisberger?
Ben Roethlisberger. Yeah, as he was flying off his motorcycle, coming away from a fair, his shoes fell off, and they were $30.
What?
I don't know. But no, Big Ben. Big Ben. Yeah,
Ben Wallace.
Yeah, Ben Wallace. He had shoes like that. They were like $30.
It was short-lived,
yeah.
short-lived.
Yeah.
Truly.
Nobody cares. Nobody wants it.
So I just thought Bill, like, I don't think of that as Bill cheaping out. I think that was him being like, oh, nice. Like, he probably read some stories about it, and he was like, this is a good basketball shoe, and it's affordable. I'm not spending $100 on a basketball shoe. So
someone spent $100 and kids didn't make them, and it's all great. Yeah.
It was great.
For a good cause.
It was great. Also, speaking of my childhood, I've been watching a lot of The Twilight Zone lately. I'm not going to recap that episode for you, but I'm big into The Twilight Zone now. Oh, again, I've always liked it, but now I'm going to watch it in order.
Yeah.
I think
Twilight Zone's great.
It's fucking awesome.
But the movie is great also. I told you that the other day.
Yeah, the kids dying.
Several people get killed, but other than that, it's good.
Yeah. We'll have to see.
I would think their estate is all finalized by now.
The Bruins have been in the Twilight Zone a little bit this year.
That's seamless.
Certainly what it seemed like. But they've had back-to-back shutout wins. And so, therefore, it's like maybe they've turned this thing around. Well, they've played two teams that are not going to make the postseason. Two pretty bad teams in Philadelphia and Seattle. The last two games, they face Toronto tonight on the road, who has a similar record, 6-5-1, and the Bruins have already beaten them this year. But the drama came Sunday afternoon, third period. We talked about it yesterday. Jim Montgomery benches David Pastrnak for the third period. And we showed you the replay of it yesterday, the giveaway that he has on the power play that he's just dogging it. It leads to a 2-on-1 for Seattle, shorthanded. He gets a bad change in there. It was just not a good effort. And Montgomery says, coach's decision. And Felger talks about this on his show yesterday, about this is a deeper lying issue for Pastrnak. Here is what Felger had to say about it.
And so at least Montgomery's going after the head of the snake. The big fish is good for him. Absolutely. All right. So I'm into that. I'm also into finally someone holding Pastrnak accountable. And I blame you, the fans, as much as anything, because you all let Pastrnak get away with the way he plays as much as anyone. Because as soon as he scores, it's the pasta memes, and you're just so horned up for the goal score and the pasta and all this crap that you let him get away with. Just incredibly lazy, selfish play. And I feel like I just scream into the wind. I feel like I'm the only guy that just goes after him. But that turnover that you're mentioning at the end of the second period happens all the time, constantly. And it really shows up on those power plays where he's entering the zone. I say it all the time. I'm watching the game, and here comes Pastrnak entering the zone on the power play, and I say out loud, this is going the other way, and it goes the other way like every time. I don't know how the NHL computes giveaways, but when I watch the games, I'm like, this guy's got to have like 8 or 9 giveaways in this game, and I look at the sheet, and he ends up with 2.
Well, personally, I think this is the fans' fault. The fans should have benched Pastrnak weeks ago. I can't believe the fans let him get away with this bullshit. Like, fans, it's time to hold him accountable. It's time to bench him and yell at him. Fans. Felger will find anything to just call the fans stupid. It's just, I think it's the fans' fault.
You know what I took away from that clip?
Yeah.
I need a haircut because it said Supercuts behind his head the whole time.
See, it works.
Yeah. Advertising works, kids.
And you want to look like Mike Felger, who doesn't? Who doesn't? And like, it's just like, what do you expect? Oh, fans like him because he scores goals. Yes, that is why. Like, to be honest with you, Mike, most of the fans watching don't see that he gives away the puck a lot because they see that he scores goals. He scored 60 goals 2 years ago. Like, yeah, that's what the fans look at. So they're not supposed to celebrate when he scores goals, though. That's not,
shame on those fans.
That's not what's supposed to happen. Now, where Felger is right is the big takeaway here, pun intended, is that Pastrnak gives the puck away a lot. He turns the puck over a lot. And I'll agree with him in that I don't know exactly how they quantify this because it doesn't seem like an exact science. In fact, David Pastrnak led the league in giveaways in 23-24. Okay? So he can be careless with the puck. And we've seen that this season. He's been a guy who's been in the twilight zone this season, just lounging around. But where I'll also say is that kind of comes with the territory. When you've got a guy capable of scoring 50, 60 goals a year, these happen. They give the puck away a lot. It's like, find me a guy who hits 40 homers who doesn't strike out a lot. That's what this is. You take the good with the bad. In fact, looking at it from StatMuse, David Pastrnak led the league in giveaways. The guys behind him, Nikita Kucherov, Leon Draisaitl, Matthew Barzal, Connor McDavid, Nathan McKinnon, Philip Forsberg. These are the best goal scorers in the NHL. You know, are they really bitching in Edmonton about how much he gives away? Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl give the puck away? No. And I'm not saying we shouldn't criticize Pastrnak here. I said it yesterday. It was a bad giveaway, and he dogged it. He didn't give good enough effort. To me, that's the problem. He didn't give good enough effort after that, and it leads to a 2-on-1. It's a lazy play and a lazy effort and a lazy change to get off the ice, and it screws the whole rest of his team. But to just say, he gives the puck away too much, it's like, but that's what these guys do. Okay, he gave it away 98 times last year. He also scored 47 goals and 110 points. It was a plus 21. Like, Nikita Kucherov won the scoring title last year with 144 points. He gave it away only 2 less times. It was a plus 8. McDavid, you think he's a pretty good player? He had 132 points and gave it away 84 times. So it's just, you get the good with the bad here. But what Pastrnak needs to do is give some more damn effort. That's why you have an A on your uniform. Or does that need to get taken away too? But I said it before. I'll say it again. I said it with the Marchand thing. I'll say it with the Pastrnak thing. These guys should not be getting special treatment. And the problem with the other guy, Cassidy, was that he was too hard on the young players. DeBrusk and Carlo and Swayman. And he was so mean to those guys. And now the problem with Montgomery is apparently that he's too hard on the vets. Maybe the vets need to be harder on everybody else, including themselves. Because this is not a team that is showing their leadership on the ice. I'll say that. And I thought they didn't do that at times last year either. But it is time to hold these guys accountable, and it needs to be better than what it's been so far. But to just circle the giveaways and say, yeah, well, he gives the puck away more than anybody else. It's like, yeah, but Cole Koepke is not in the top 10. You know what I mean? It's not like, I don't know, Frank Vetrano is up there. These are the best players in the NHL that are giving the puck away a lot. Because you take the good with the bad. One of the guys in the top 10 is a defenseman. So at least, or 2 of them are defensemen. So at least they're not that. But yeah, Pastrnak, it's time to get your shit together because it's not been a great start to the season. He's got like 6 goals, which is fine. I mean, it's a 40-goal pace, but it's been all this other stuff. It's not just the giveaways. It's the effort. It's the back checking. It's the moving to space on the power play. It's not been good enough all the way around. And so if he's going to be your only offensive threat, he's got to put more effort in than that. Where we are going to put in effort is with my pal Pete Souza, who's going to come on, going to give us total wall-to-wall election coverage of this very important day. I'm just kidding. I will not ever let him do that. That's coming up next, though, on the Cam Show.
Nobody tells our stories better than our clients.
The difference is stark. I was rear-ended at 70 miles an hour. I was injured, had a concussion. The insurance company, they delayed. They were playing games from the initial conversation. They weren't going to help me. The biggest thing I learned through this is that you can't go through this alone. I called Daniel Stark. They were going to help me, and everything was going to be all right. Daniel Stark got me 10 times the insurance company offered.
The difference is stark.
We definitely love our relationship and love Extraco. It's been an amazing experience.
They made the PPP process easier. They were reaching out to me saying, what can I do to help you? That made a huge difference because my stress level, when we shut down, to afterwards was night and day.
Our experience with Extraco has been phenomenal since the very beginning, so we love Extraco.
It is Matt Mosley, and it's the Obstructed View podcast, Rogue Media Network. I think they're learning that there's really no wonderful view of me. See, I feel like they think this feed's going to be really wonderful.
There must have been no BS, like 20 scouts, 15 to 20 NBA scouts there to see him, and he was top 5.
When your old number wasn't working, I went through various channels to track you down. So unfortunately, you can never get away from me. But I'm happy to have you today.
No, thanks for having me. And you know we always family no matter where I'm at.
I mean, yeah, a new coach comes in, they're going to turn the roster. I think that's just we've got all these transfer portal stats and what Dion did and what Fritz has done. I mean, that's the deal, man. That's the game that's being played nowadays.
Maybe a little bit unknown at quarterback. I mean, unknown to the rest of the world, but you know, he dove into the portal and got a guy who is super, super athletic.
South Dakota State's really good. Give us a little bit of breakdown about what they can do and what Oklahoma State needs to be worried about.
But look at that form right there. I need to say nothing else about this because I found one.
Okay. Pete Souza of the Pete Souza Show.
Can't wait till today at 1:00.
Why?
So I get to do the Pete Souza Show.
Oh yeah, that's today, huh?
Yeah, I mean, as a little kid, I used to do a fake show. So now I get to do a kind of real show.
What was your fake show like?
It was me and my friend Matt Kupek, and we watched the sports reporters, and then we'd also watch the Great Sports Debate, which was on like local cable in Philadelphia. So we were like the sports writers giving our opinion. With like, hot takes before hot takes. Like if Randall Cunningham didn't have gold tip shoelaces, maybe he'd be a little more concerned with the opposing defensive coverage and be more equipped when he faces the Redskins in that tough secondary.
That is an argument that I still love. That people still throw out. I remember when Cam Newton was the Patriots quarterback.
Yeah, if he wasn't so concerned,
maybe if he wasn't so concerned about what hat he was wearing into the game, and I was like, no, the problem is he can't throw the fucking football 10 yards.
Could you imagine?
The issue is not what he's wearing.
I know it's different, but just
and there's still there are some instances where I'm kind of like, can you just be, I guess for lack of a better term, just conservative or something? Like, can you just care about football and that's it? But anyway.
Well, but I like, and you can't, it's not fair because we always say these guys are getting paid as performers and they're getting paid more money than anybody. But could you imagine like if somebody followed me around like all day long, like, if he wasn't so concerned with driving to Auntie Anne's and getting 3 soft pretzels when he's got to finish up the work at home to do, he'd get more sleep. He wouldn't be bloated because of the pretzels. He'd be feeling better. It's like, okay.
Dude, I had this
he's got sour stomach because all the pretzels he ate. Now that's our problem. Convert on third down.
I don't know why any athlete would follow sports media, to be totally honest with you. Like, I know most of them are sports fans, but like we had someone in here yesterday who's a Baylor player, been a Baylor player for a long time. I do a somewhat popular Baylor podcast.
I didn't tell him that you did Locked On, by the way.
That's all right.
Because I didn't know.
But you had said something like, "Oh, you probably know Cam."
Yeah.
And he was like, "No, I don't think I do." And I was like, "That's a good thing."
Yeah.
Like I wouldn't say I'm particularly edgy, and I'm not like slamming players and doing stuff like we were just describing, but like there's no benefit really of listening to that.
Some of those guys do listen though.
Yeah, I know they do, and I'm appreciative of that. I don't want to sound like I'm not.
Yeah.
In fact, there was a basketball player who I'm a big fan of, like personally, who is now in the NBA, who watched every episode. So like I'm appreciative of that. But like if I was
Eve
a player,
Meese.
yeah, it was Eve Meese. Yeah, he might still watch.
Pick.
I don't know. He might be watching right now on the Cam show,
dude. If he wasn't so concerned with watching the Cam show, he'd be giving the Heat better minutes down low.
Pelicans, yeah.
The Pelicans.
I think there's gonna be a day too where one of those players who like I'll make some sort of contact with, some sort of connection with, will play for the Celtics. And that is, I'm going to break whatever journalistic code and be like, hey man, can I get a jersey? Like, can I get a jersey sign? Hey, you guys are going to be in Chicago this day. If you guys have any extra tickets, like I think
all that is almost like all those rules are sort of weirdly gone now.
I was rooting so hard for them to draft Jalen Bridges in the second round this past year.
That would have been amazing.
Baylor guy who, again, he knows who I am. Like, I wouldn't say we're friends or anything, but I could have been like, hey man, congrats on the Celtics. Like, need any Boston Rex? I got you. And you could have built something from there. That's gonna happen someday.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
But yeah, so like I just like there's no reason for them to be watching or listening to Locked On Baylor. I don't think there are a lot of players' families who come up to me and say they enjoy the show. And even then I'm like, oh shit.
Yeah. Oh dude, it's scary. I mean? When somebody actually says,
there was one time this year that I didn't realize it until afterwards, Pete, you'll appreciate this, that I refrained from criticizing a player because his mom is a big fan of the show. And like
Josh Cameron. That's another one. I nailed it.
Like,
yeah.
She's an adult, you know, she's very nice. We've talked.
She's awesome.
In person. Like, she can handle it. You know what I mean? But I didn't even realize it till afterwards. I was like looking back at my notes and I was like, oh yeah, Josh Cameron really flubbed the punt and it lost him like 25 yards of field position and a big drive.
Yeah.
And I guess I forgot, but I think it was a subconscious of like, oh, don't say it. His mom's listening. Like,
dude, it's so
good. That's not good.
So interesting. It's not, but look, it's so interesting because we operate, and I got to say because I'm in it now, as though these guys will never hear us or never see what we're saying, and that is not true. And you need to operate as though they might see you because one, I think that changes the decorum with which you deliver a lot of your messages. Because look, like we saw it with Joel Embiid and Marcus Hayes in Philadelphia. We saw it with Mike Leslie outside the Cowboys locker room in San Francisco. Like, I'm not saying either of those players were right to react the way they did to the writers or reporters in Mike Leslie's case, but I mean, that's a reality. Like, you say stuff about people, there are consequences. It's beyond your control. Once you put it out there, you don't know how they're going to react. And people can react.
I want to talk about this because I know you talked about this on your show, but we didn't get to talk about it. Let's talk about the Philly guy, Hayes. Right?
Marcus Hayes. Yeah, I've been reading him for a long time.
Over the line?
Yes. 100% over the line.
Has he said anything about that? Like,
Marcus
has he said,
Hayes?
like, you know what? I probably went too far.
No, I don't think so. Not that I would assume that I would have saw something, but you can't assume.
That's like that to me. There's like a Black Mirror Twilight Zone aspect, to bring Twilight Zone back into this, of like people who are just in, especially columnists who are in that for so long.
Yeah.
And they just think they can say whatever. And they have a great following like Hayes does, like Shaughnessy does in Boston. They got a good enough following that there's always going to be people telling them, hey, you suck. Why did you say this? But that just becomes
their thing.
White noise.
Yeah.
Because there's enough people who are saying, oh yeah, but Hayes is holding them accountable. I also think Embiid should be playing, you know, and there's enough of that they're like, I can keep doing this.
I do. First of all, I think his point is right. Like, I think that Embiid should be in better shape when he gets to the team.
That vacuum, that is correct.
So that's the truth. So I don't think he's soft or he's faking injuries. I think he doesn't work hard enough in the offseason to get his body where he needs to be when the season starts, and he doesn't get a pass like Shaq did because he's never won a title. And maybe it's because he's never had the supporting cast, but like, I don't want to hear about that. Like, don't tell me about the waves in the ocean, dude. Just get that ship in the harbor, dude.
Yeah. And I would leave the dead brother thing out of it, but
yeah, I mean,
that was for shock value.
And it was a terrible thing to say.
Yeah.
Like the way, do you know the way he worded it? Did you read it?
It was like he's dedicating his career to like his late brother, who we named his kid after,
who died in a tragic accident.
And part of like having a great career is showing up to work. You gotta show up to work. I'm like, come on, man.
Yeah.
Like you could do a really good biting column about what we just talked about. You know, Joel Embiid not being in shape and letting his teammates down. And, you know, it might come off a little harsh, but this is over the line.
Look,
and that is like if he's bitching about like Joel Embiid confronting him, it's like you have to know as a journalist.
And I don't know that he's bitching about
have
that.
Consequences. I don't think he has.
No, I think he showed up because remember now he's a columnist and he did make it a point because there was some scuttlebutt like Embiid had been looking for him at like the day before or 2 days before, whether a shoot around or a practice. And so Marcus Hayes knew, like, I gotta show up.
Yep.
I gotta like, which is like the right thing to do. Like, and that's why a lot of sports writers keep their street cred with the players, because if I write something about you, I'm going to be at practice the next day. And if you want to talk
beat
it
guys so much.
Yeah, that's why it's true, because that they're and I'll tell you why I like beat guys, because the players like beat guys, because beat guys are at every practice, they're at every shoot around, they're at every game. And they develop a familiarity with the players. And the players, whether they like it or not, or it's a subconscious, respect the craft and that they're always there. Like there's something to be said for that. Like a Wednesday before Thanksgiving game, a shoot around in the morning when everybody would probably rather be somewhere else, or Thanksgiving Day or Christmas Day. And you guys are both there. You're the writer, I'm the player. It bridges some gaps.
That's one of the nice things you said about me.
Yeah.
Early on in our relationship.
You always show up.
You said you're there.
I go to the games.
And I don't get to go to as much anymore, mainly because of jobs like this, which I feel does lose my cred a little bit. You know, I'm not at every press conference anymore. I do post game, so I don't make all the post game pressers. You know, I can't go to practice availability. So it's different.
I'm appreciative. Last point on this topic. Yeah. I'm appreciative that in the wake of the pandemic, that we really are back more in person than I think a lot of people maybe ever thought, especially players and coaches, as far as like having to deal with the media. Like, you know, that Marcus Hayes, Joel Embiid thing happened in the locker room. You know, locker rooms are opened up again after games, after like the 10-minute cooling off period. And for the same reason, locker rooms are open before games. And just being around, I'm telling you, going to that locker room, players seeing you, seeing that you're working, helps these writers get better stories and develop better relationships. And it rewards the writers who show up.
I do want to talk about Joel Embiid a little bit, because now we've gotten to a segment that I can actually put a thumbnail to and post it. I was wondering this yesterday of like, he comes in during the process, right? He's obviously a huge part of it, the trust the process thing. And I just look back on it and I'm like, who was this guy's pro? Like there were not a lot of pros on that team. They were trying to lose.
No.
Right. So there's not a lot of guys in there trying to teach you how to be a professional and how to win. And now all of a sudden, and by that I mean 5 or 6 years ago, it's like, all right, your team, we got to go win. Show them all how to do it, Joel. And a huge part of that gets very underrated is actually taking care of your body. LeBron is the greatest example, right? He's 40 or about to turn 40, and he is in better shape than a lot of guys on his team. He bitches about having to do load management because he doesn't think he needs to, because he keeps his body in tremendous shape. That right there is like a huge part of this that I think even bigger than most fans understand, of like, it's not just the basketball IQ or knowing how to talk to the refs, or like, it's taking care of your body is step one.
Yeah.
And it's something that I give great praise to for Tatum and Brown, is like, they might not be the most skilled players in the league, and you want to argue that they're not top 5, not top 3, or whatever the fuck. It's like a huge part of this is that they play 82 games every year. And so, right now, if Giannis gets another big injury, like that's a problem. The Bucks are done. Or Joel Embiid's a great example. Like, is Joel Embiid a better player when he's on than Jason Tatum? Sure. But who am I taking on my team? It's
Tatum.
No question.
Yeah.
It's no question.
Well,
Tatum's
the best
there every night.
The best of ability is availability.
Yeah.
It's like the old saying, but it's true in a lot of cases, especially when you're talking about elite guys in the NBA. If you're not on the floor, what you're doing a major disservice to your team, because more than likely they're built around you being out there and being present and successful. With Embiid, I totally agree with what you're saying, and that's why I had an issue with the process to begin with, because I feel like they bred losers, and that's a little dramatic, but you get what I'm saying.
I mean, that's what they were harboring for, fostering for years.
Yeah. So it was like, let's just lose. And I think there's something to be said about like the competitive and look, if the ball had bounced a couple different ways for the Sixers in some of those playoff series, and whatever, maybe we'd be having a different conversation about a team with a different legacy, but those balls never bounced in the Sixers' direction. And so now you could say that the process has not been successful. And you could say that someone like Joel Embiid, he's kind of like the last man standing.
Well, I was going to say, even when you look back at it,
he's
while
the face of frustration for me,
like,
unfortunately. And apparently all my friends love him. All the Philly guys, people love Embiid. He's a great dude. We all want to see him do well. Like, and again, to what you're saying, I remember Jimmy Lynam, Sixers assistant coach, telling me years ago that Embiid was like the best he's ever seen. And this is not a guy that like blows up stories, or he was like, this guy's amazing. But to your point, clearly there wasn't that nurturing person around him that was able to show him the way.
He needed an Al Horford.
Yeah.
Which is funny because they did play together in Philly for a year.
I need a Tito Horford.
Who doesn't?
Yeah.
Tito had some issues back in his day, but he seems like a nice guy.
He's got a great name.
But yeah, to your point about the like breeding losers, it's like, obviously they're not necessarily coming out saying we're gonna lose every night. The guys is we're gonna develop young players, and we see that in every sport. We're gonna develop young players and try to get a young core out of this. But it's like, do you go in? All right, you're playing the Washington Wizards on a Wednesday in mid-December. Is that young player, that Joel Embiid, that Ben Simmons, that Nerlens Noel, thinking, how am I going to help the team win tonight? Or are they thinking, what do I need to develop?
Yeah.
Like, do I need to score? Do I need to become a 20, 25 point a game guy? Should I do that tonight? Should I take 20 shots? Like I think there's actually something to that.
Well, and the coach is kind of neutered in that whole situation, because it's like, really, you want us to do this to win? Well, we're not supposed to win. It's
right.
So it's
and I find this, and I know we're talking a lot of Philly here, but this I think ties into Boston big time, because you saw, a franchise that has done it right, I think, in the Celtics, and one that has not gotten it right with the Sixers. They had different starting points. Yes. The Celtics had one or two below 500 teams in there. They missed the playoffs once. They were really a lottery team only once. And Philly was that for a couple of years. They were the worst team in basketball. I get that. I get that at different starting points, but the Celtics, they had different starting points mainly because the Celtics had that mentality to, we're going to tank 1 year. Then they get Isaiah Thomas and he's good. And they're like, all right, let's win some games. Let's go to the playoffs. We're not going to beat LeBron in the playoffs, obviously, but it started something. And, all of a sudden, Marcus Smart has that experience year one. And you'd bring in guys, the young guys, Tatum and Brown, and that Brown rookie year team wasn't great as a 1 seed, but they're a 1 seed. They're winning a lot of games.
Yeah.
It is just such a different, kind of harboring ground, whatever you call it there. But when you look back at the process, in terms of a player standpoint, Embiid is the only guy you netted from that, really. Simmons gave you something.
Maxey, but he wasn't a process guy.
He was a little post-process,
Yeah.
right? The other guys would be Michael Carter-Williams, Rookie of the Year, Massachusetts guy. Nerlens Noel.
Who was the guy from
Mark Elfin.
Ohio State who has Bell's palsy? Great guy.
Evan Turner.
Evan Turner. Yeah, he was another process guy.
Second pick in the draft. I said he was going to be better than John Wall. Didn't happen. By the way, I noticed this last night. We talked a little Massachusetts basketball the other day.
Yeah.
How about let's extend it to New England? Who was the number one player in high school this year? Who's going to be the number one pick in the draft this year?
Oh, what's his face? The guy from Duke.
Cooper Flagg.
Cooper Flagg.
From Maine.
Yeah.
Number one high school player in the country this year, AJ DeBonce of Brockton, Massachusetts. They can develop some players, okay?
Let's not get carried away, dude.
I say there's always Massachusetts guys. There's always New England guys in the NBA. I know it's not a hotbed, but there's always guys there. Bruce Brown, Connaughton.
You should have heard the folks in Canada after Wiggins and Anthony Bennett were taken. People were just like, Canada is the spot for new prospects.
Canada's doing well. I had RJ Barrett into there. Minnesota's had some good ones the last couple of years.
Yeah.
Jalen Suggs.
Come to Philadelphia. All right.
Philly's good.
We'll turn you into
Philly's
a champion.
good.
You know?
I've heard of it.
A lot of good
I think
basketball.
Patrick Ewing's better than Wilt. I don't know. What can I say?
But Patrick Ewing he's from Jamaica.
No, Cambridge.
Yeah, okay.
Cambridge.
He had a cup of
Latin.
coffee in Cambridge because he liked Mike Jarvis.
I think he could spell Ringe in Latin by the time he graduated. But
whoa.
I'm kidding. He got into Georgetown. I like Patrick Ewing. I can't help it. That's Pete Souza. He'll be on at 1:00. I guess I'll be there with you at one point, Pete.
Yes,
cannot wait.
I really
talk
do.
about some good basketball.
Yeah, I want to talk about. The lid came off for Baylor last night, and what came out was not necessarily attractive. We're going to talk about it.
Yeah, that's just the appetizer. Thank you, Mike. Appreciate you filling in today and giving some great insight. Anyway, we will see you high noon Eastern tomorrow, 11 a.m. Central Time, live on YouTube, and then wherever you get your podcasts. It's the Cam Show. We'll see you then.
You are here with your shoot first point guard, Corey Dickman.
Also, if you're not creating new fans in a small market, then you're not creating that base of people to go to games and pay for merchandise and pay for stuff and concessions at the Moda Center and yada yada.
Yeah, let's talk draft. That's the only thing we have to look forward to. The only thing we have to look forward to. That's what I will teach my son. You will teach your daughter as Blazers fans. It's like, look, the two most exciting times of the year for us are the draft lottery and the draft itself. Like, here we are. This is our thing. Give me some memories and thoughts. I know you had mentioned the first time you had met Bill. What were some of those first memories that came back when you heard the news?
Coming up on the Pete Souza Show, Rogue Media and ESPN's own King McClure talks to us about the NBA draft.
The team is banged up a bit.
Undressed while we're doing this?
No.
What is happening?
And it's partially because the team has pretty kind
Wrong
of big
podcast, Mick. Wrong podcast. When you're a golfer, what is the point of no return? He was the best play-by-play announcer around, in my opinion, and he made me want to continue to watch.
We definitely love our relationship and love Extraco. It's been an amazing experience.
They made the PPP process easier. They were reaching out to me saying, what can I do to help you? That made a huge difference because my stress level, when we shut down, to afterwards was night and day.
Our experience with Extraco has been phenomenal since the very beginning, so we love Extraco.
Nobody tells our stories better than our clients.
The difference is stark. I was rear-ended at a stop. I thought I was fine, and then once I got home, I realized it's a lot worse than I thought. I ended up having a ruptured disc. You say you're not hurting, and then an hour later you're saying you're in all this pain. I just felt like most people would think that I was lying. That's when I decided to call Daniel Stark. I owe a lot to Daniel Stark. They really got me what I deserved.
The difference is Stark.
We are Rogue Media Sports.